It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Hey there, hi there, ho there. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? We got two guests for you today. First one up is Sammy Sadler. Sammy is a former top 40 country artist and survivor of the infamous murder on Music Row. Sammy was in the car and was shot and wounded while his friend Kevin Hughes was murdered. The investigation went on for 13 years, and he has a book out called A Hit with a Bullet, which recounts the whole story and talks about Sammy's career as well, and the music business in general. We've also got a track of his to play called Louisiana Rain. He will be up first, followed by Christopher Sibley. Christopher is a filmmaker who's got a film out now called Crazy World, Ain't It?, which is a documentary film on the life of John Van Hammersveld. John is a very famous graphic artist who did many album covers and posters, notably the poster for the Endless Summer movie, the surfing movie, and he also did the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour album cover. So Christopher will be up in the second half of the show. A quick thank you to George Hendrickson for his very generous donation on our GoFundMe. Thank you very much, George. We really appreciate that. It helps out tremendously and keeps us able to bring you quality entertainment like the show you will hear today. So, without further ado, here is Louisiana Rain by Sammy Sadler.
Swim and the river's high, the bridge is out and we can't get by, the levee's in for an awful strain, ain't nothing like a Louisiana rain. My lady lives south of Baton Rouge, the power lines won't let me through, they're laying down where they used to hang, ain't nothing like a Louisiana rain. Just like the thunder, I'm restless tonight, thinking about her makes the lightning strike. I know the sun is gonna shine again, and all of this rain will be gone with the wind. I was working on the Delta Queen, then I'd be floating up from New Orleans, straight to her arms where I feel no pain. Ain't nothing like a Louisiana rain, no, no. Just like the thunder, I'm restless tonight, thinking about her makes the lightning strike. I know the sun is gonna shine again, and all of this rain will be gone with the wind. Ain't nothing like a Louisiana rain, no, no. Lord, it's cold, ain't nothing like a Louisiana rain, getting me down.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Sammy Sadler. Hey, Sammy, how are you?
How you doing, Douglas?
Doing just fine. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Let's see. You've had a rather interesting life. Why don't we just start at the beginning? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to Nashville?
I got a record deal, Douglas, when I was 18 years old, and before I went to Nashville, I was, playing, different Opries and stuff in Texas and Oklahoma and Louisiana. I got invited to play the Louisiana Hayride, where Elvis and Hank and all those guys had played, and then it ended up being able to play the Louisiana Hayride twice, and got a record deal right out of high school, and ended up moving to Nashville about 6 months after I graduated, and got a record deal, and back then it was just kind of really unheard of somebody getting signed at 18 years old, and those days they were wanting people in their mid to late 20s, early 30s, but with everything's changed in today's world, now they're signing people that are kids, but that's kind of where my career started and how it kind of began.
Okay, so it sounded like you had a pretty easy ride up to Nashville, though, yeah? What were you doing that you got signed? I mean, did you get lucky and meet the right person at the right time or be in the right place?
Well, when we moved to Nashville, I mean, I've loved music all my life, and my parents said that I was singing and stuff when I was 2 years old, but obviously I don't remember all of that, but my parents were always supportive of me and always backed me in what I did. I mean, I was a really good baseball player and athlete when I was growing up and through school, and I had to make a decision whether I was going to pursue sports or make a decision if I was going to pursue music, and I ended up pursuing the music career. And we went to Nashville on and off all through my life when I was young, and when we moved up to Nashville, my dad rented a limo one day and kind of took. We had this guy that was a limo driver, and he was taking us around town and showing us different things, showing us where some of the stars lived, and kind of went in that direction. And the limo driver ended up knowing some people in the music business and knowing some reputable people, and he's the one that actually helped get me a record deal and was responsible for helping me secure my first record deal.
So what was your first big hit?
Well, back in those days, Douglas, they would just put out records and singles on you to kind of see how your singles did before they would really go in and start pursuing producing an album. But I had 6 nationally charted records by the time I was 21 years old, and my fastest rising single at the time was an old Aaron Neville song that Aaron had out called "Tell It Like It Is," and that was my fastest rising single when I was 21. And we were in the studio working on my first album when tragedy struck on March 9th, 1989. Whenever I had "Tell It Like It Is" out on the charts, I got shot on March 9th and left for dead. And my friend Kevin Hughes, who was the research chart manager for Cashbox magazine, which Cashbox back in those days was a rivalry to Billboard, and Kevin was shot and murdered that night, and I was shot and left for dead.
How did you get involved with Kevin? How did you meet him?
Well, Kevin, not only was I recording for Evergreen Records at the time, but kind of the same story as T.G. Shepherd was working for RCA Records whenever he put out his first record. He was a promotion man for RCA Records, and I had went to work for my record label, promoting records as well, learning that end of the business. So at the time of the shooting, because of me being able to work records, I got to know Kevin on that level of having to talk to him every week, and we had just become friends. We'd only known each other about 7 or 8 months, and And as I know, as time would have went on, we would have become very, very dear and close friends if that hadn't have happened to us that night. But that's how mine and Kevin's relationship started.
Now, where were you hit? Where were you shot?
I was shot the night of the shooting. Kevin and I was getting into Kevin's car on 16th Avenue, which is Music Row, and I'd sat down to start to shut the door, and I started to reach for the door, and I caught something moving out of the corner of my eye. And as I looked up, there was a man or somebody standing between me and the car door, and I just saw his arms stretched straight out, and I saw a gun, and I said, "Oh my God, this guy's got a gun!" And I just automatically threw my arms up to cover my head, and that's when he shot. And it shot me and hit me right above my elbow and my arm, and the bullet ricocheted up into my arm, up into my chest. And I still carry the bullet today. And obviously, I didn't know how bad I was hurt that night, but he had severed the main artery in my arm. I was bleeding out, and I had to have 18 hours of surgery that night at Vanderbilt.
You said the bullet is still in you?
Still lodged in my muscle and my right shoulder.
They didn't take it out? They couldn't take it out?
They didn't go in there to take it out because it's lodged deep in the muscle that moves whenever I move my arm up and down, and they didn't want to tear my muscle up to take it out.
Wow. Can you still feel it?
I can't feel it. I've only had one incident at an airport where it set off the detector, but other than that, I haven't had any problems with it. Thank God.
Well, thank God. Yeah, I wonder how did you explain that when that set off the detector? Did they buy your story?
I just told the guy, I said, "Look, I've got a bullet in me," and then I told the guy who it was and what had happened to me, and the security guard was just amazed about what I told him.
Oh, I bet he was. Okay, so then Kevin was murdered that night. You were wounded. How did the police get to come, or when did they come? How fast did they come?
Well, I mean, like I said, that night I didn't know how bad I was hurt, and they operated on me 18 hours under a microscope that night, and I don't know if it was the next day or 2 days later when I woke up. I mean, it wasn't long after I woke up that they were in questioning me in the hospital.
Was anybody a witness to this?
Well, there were 4 or 5 people that saw this happen, but couldn't tell them any more than what I had told them.
Okay, so you said the guy was wearing a ski mask?
He had a mask on, yes, and I mean, obviously I couldn't tell whether he was white or black or anything else. I mean, he had a mask on. It was dark, and all I could tell him is what I remembered in my mind.
Why did the police consider you a suspect?
Well, Douglas, I'd like to know that. I'd like to know that question myself. I've had to live all these years of my life wondering that. I mean, they treated me, like a suspect. I had to go take a lie detector test. I had to go and be hypnotized, and they were right there in the room with me whenever I was hypnotized. They took me over to Vanderbilt in Nashville and had a professor there hypnotize me. They're sitting there on the back of the couch right behind me, and I mean, I've never experienced anything like that. And whenever we got through, when we got ready to leave, I mean, they sat right there. Whenever we got ready to leave, and asked that guy, was he really hypnotized? And the professor said, absolutely. I mean, and they're sitting right there in the room with me. I mean, at some point in time, I mean, I can understand everybody's got a job to do, and I understand that. And, I'm thankful for the police solving this crime. Why it took 13 or 13 and a half years is still a mystery to me. But I'm thankful that they solved it. But, at some point in time, with me doing everything that was asked to do from them, you're not a suspect anymore, and you're not treated that way. And I still think today, I said it then, and I'll say it now, I still think they owe me an apology of what they put me through, what they put my family through. And if they ever made Kevin Hughes' family feel that I was involved in that, that hurts me, and it bothers me to this day.
Yeah. Did you ever consider filing any lawsuits against the police for that?
I mean, I was a 21-year-old kid. I mean, I'm not that kind of person. I mean, I never even thought to do that. I mean, nobody ever came to me and even told me how to get help or to get, any kind of compensation from the state or anybody. Nobody ever helped me or told me anything. So, it's been a very hard process to live with. It was devastating at the time, not only to me, but to my family. And I can only imagine what Kevin's family had to go with, and had to go through. I mean, one dies and one lives. Only God knows that. I'm thankful that he saved my life that night, and I'm thankful to still be here. But, I can't imagine what Kevin's family's had to live with and go through. I just only know what we've had to live with and go through, and it's been very difficult to have to live that way and be treated that way and have to go through that process.
So how long did it take you to recover from all of this? I mean, both sort of physically and mentally.
Well, the night that this all happened, and they said that we got shot, that all of that happened within 7 seconds, and that 7 seconds took me about 2.5 years to get back up on my feet. I had to go through, like I said, an 18-hour operation that night. They had to take an artery out of my leg and graft into my arm. If that hadn't have took, they'd have had to cut my arm off.
Mm-hmm.
They went in and wrapped my nerves. There's 3 nerves that come out of your neck into your arm that control your arm and your hand. They had to wrap all those nerves in some synthetic fibers that night. And my arm, when I woke up, was the size of about 3 or 4 basketballs. It was wrapped. I couldn't move my arm. My hand was drooped down in a fist position. I couldn't raise my wrist or open my hand up. I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to use my hand or anything for a while. And luckily, 3 months later, we were going to have a second operation. And Al Gore was a senator at the time, and he's the one that was responsible for helping me get my second operation down in New Orleans, Louisiana, with Dr. David Klein. And luckily, my hand and my wrist started working again right before that operation. So they only had to graft one nerve together, and Dr. Klein in New Orleans is responsible for that operation.
Wow, that's amazing. And now, I mean, you can play the guitar, right?
I can play the guitar again, but I can't play it as good as I used to, because the nerve that allows your fingers to separate and to be able to pinch real hard, that's the nerve that had to be grafted. And, I mean, you wouldn't recognize anything on me unless I showed it to you, but it allows you to pinch and to hold things very tightly. And so my hand coordination is not as good as it used to be. So I still play a little bit, but I use my band and my guitar players to take care of that for me.
Now, this was on your right side, your right hand, and
my right hand, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I've got a scar that runs from up underneath my armpit all the way down past my elbow. I had to have 100 stitches stitched up in that.
This might sound like a ridiculous thing to say, but did you ever consider trying to play guitar left-handed now?
No, I never, because I wouldn't be able to fret with my right hand. So I did have to learn how to do everything else with my left hand. I had to learn how to write with it. I learned how to shave and put my clothes on. So I had to do a lot of restructuring there for a while until I get to use back again.
Yeah, I bet. Why did you decide to go back to music after this?
Well, I mean, I never left music just for the time being to basically recuperate and to get back up on my feet. But I went back out on the road and put another band together back in '91, and and I toured for about 7 or 8 years solid through that, and it just got to a point, living with the who did this, why did it do it, the pressure, of having to live with all that just kind of got to me, and I come off the road for a while and walked away from it for a few years. But the passion is like a fire inside you, and for me as a singer, I mean, God put the dream in me as a young age and as a young kid, and only singers and entertainers know what I'm talking about. It's just like a baseball player or a football player or a basketball player. I mean, you have that fire in you to do that and pursue that, and mine just happens to be singing and entertaining, and that fire and passion never left me. But my spirit was broke for a while, and it's the only thing that I can tell anybody is that God is the one is the one who has sustained me through all this and brought me through this, and if it wasn't for Him, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. I was reading on the bio sheet that your PR people sent. So basically everybody from that incident is now dead except for you, right?
I'm not really sure if all the people are dead or not. I mean, I know the guy that pulled the trigger, Richard D'Antonio, I think he died in prison 2 or 2.5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And they said that Chuck Dixon, the police told me whenever I asked where Chuck Dixon was, they said that he had died, and told me that he had passed away walking out to his mailbox, and then I hear that he died of cancer. So I really don't know, I don't know what to believe, but all I can do is, like I said, Douglas, I'm just thankful to still be here. I'm thankful to be able to tell my story through my eyes of what I've had to live through and what I've had to go through. And not only, am I wanting to be a voice for myself, I hope it's a voice for Kevin because he's not here and he's not able to speak. But I hope that this book will shed light on this story and our story, and let people know what really happened, what really went on, and what it's really all about.
So the book is called A Hit with a Bullet, which is an interesting double entendre title. When did you start writing this book?
Well, it's been a 10 or 12-year process, really. As this book will tell you, that's why if you're a musician, if you're a singer, entertainer, and you've got aspirations and dreams of going to Nashville or going to, it doesn't matter whether it's country music or pop or blues or whatever it is, you need to read this book and find out what really goes on in the music business, how people's careers are really made, because this book will shed light on it. It's a shame that talent plays very little to do with it. It's all about money and politics, and it's a shame that this business is that way, and I didn't make the business. I'm just trying to be a part of it. I didn't make the rules, and I'm not the one who, I'm just trying to be a player in the game just like everybody else. But, God is, why I had to go through what I've had to go through and why I've had to live through what we've done. I mean, I'm just thankful, and hopefully this book will help somebody on their journey and their process of pursuing a dream,
So the release date on here says May 21st, so it's been out for 2 months. Oh, no, not even. 1 month and a bit?
Yeah, it's been out about a month or so, and I understand it's on the bestsellers list in 3 different categories on Amazon, in 3 different categories. So, we're happy about that, and we just want to get the story out and, let people read for themselves and let them decide what they think.
One thing that I was surprised about when I read through this is it says the story is currently being shopped for a movie and or miniseries deal. I'm surprised this wasn't done a long time ago. I mean, this story just rings of a movie.
Well, there are some movie people I understand that's talking to us and are talking to my people right now, and if that happens, that would be great. But, I'm just thankful that the book's out and the story's out there, and hope that people will go and get a copy of it. And, we're working on new music. We got a brand new album that I've just finished, and Restless Heart and Shenandoah and T. Graham Brown and some people have come in and sang with me on the new album. And so we've got new music coming down the road, and we're just thankful to still be in a business that we love to do, and just thankful to get my story out, and hopefully people will read it, and it'll be able to help them as they're aspiring musicians and singers. And if not, if you want to know anything about the music business or things that go on in it, this is the book to read.
Okay, well, once again, the book is called A Hit with a Bullet. The author's name is Sammy Sadler. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you being forthcoming with your story. That's an incredible story. Are you touring now?
We are just now gearing up, Douglas. We're out doing book tours right now, and we've got a new booking agent, so we're going to be gearing up to go back out and start touring and start doing shows again. And you can keep up with us on my website at sammysadler.com, or put them on Facebook, and be sure to go on the one that's got the blue check. That's my official page, to where you can keep up with things. And you can go order the book at sammysadler.com, amazon.com, target.com, and I understand now that it's out on the Kindle and Matchbook and all that. You can download it. So thank you, Douglas, for having us on the program and sharing my story. And I hope your listeners will, buy the book and read the story.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
God bless you.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records. And it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, Stuart, Epps, EPPS, at talk, TALK, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
The Douglas Coleman Show is now offering a complete radio promotional package for music artists. Your track will air 28 times a week for 1 month over all of our online and terrestrial platforms, as well as permanently archive on Spreaker, iTunes and many other sites. Your profile will also be featured in our featured music artists page on our website. With this package, you will also get a 15-minute interview on our show to promote your latest single, EP, LP or upcoming gig. Similar packages like this can run hundreds of dollars and often are subscription-based. Our package is a one-time fee of just $49.99. Please go to douglascolemanmusic.com/CRPP. That's douglascolemanmusic.com/CRPP for complete details. Let's work together to get your music heard.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! No doubt about it. I gotta get another hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Christopher Sibley. Hi, Christopher. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. What exactly is your title? I didn't know how to introduce you as... what are you, a filmmaker, a cinematographer? What do you call yourself?
I wear many hats these days. I am a filmmaker, but I produce, write, direct, shoot, edit, operate drones, conceptualize for VR. I do a little bit of everything.
Okay.
But I would call myself a filmmaker.
Drones, that's interesting. Though you can get some pretty cool aerial shots cheap with those, yeah?
Yes, sir. That's true. I actually used to build them before they were prosumer. I used to order parts and construct them and put them together before you could kind of order them and fly them out of the box. And that was kind of in the early days of my career. But now I utilize kind of the latest tech in all that I shoot these days as well, be it a documentary or scripted or commercials. It's a lot of fun.
Now, what's the difference between a drone and... When I was a kid... not a lot of people, but some of the kids had these radio-controlled model airplanes. What's the difference between that and a drone?
Drone is kind of it's actually a kind of a derogatory term for the unmanned aerial crafts, basically. But they're all the same thing. Drones typically are 4, 6, or 8 propellers is a helicopter versus, those planes that are
really a plane,
kind of double-wing planes.
Right.
But yeah, it's all kind of the same thing. Drone is what was commercialized and is kind of the buzzword for those aircrafts. But technically they're called unmanned aircrafts.
Okay. Because, they're used in so many applications, everything from bombing and war games to film to, spying on people. Are they expensive? What would a drone cost? I have no idea.
It just depends on what kind of drone you're doing. They can range anywhere from, the little baby basic racer drones can be $100, a couple $100. So you can buy little $60 ones up to, $10,000 if you get the big octocopters.
Wow.
You're shooting professionally. Typically on film sets, it's not an easy ordeal. You have to get certified as a pilot. You have to get approved in an area to fly. You have to have your routes pre-approved by a board and given a permit. And if you're using a big octocopter, you're usually operating 3 people. You have some person operating the camera and then 2 people operating the drones as a spotter and a pilot. So it can be as large or as small as an operation as you want it to be. I like to kind of find myself in the middle where I'm kind of operating on my own as a licensed drone pilot, but also I then don't require the big octocopters and the big permitting processes to fly kind of the larger units.
Now, if you're flying the thing, navigation, I assumed, is done with some kind of a GPS, because you wouldn't necessarily always be able to see the thing. Is that correct? Like you could fly out to where you can't see where it is anymore.
Yeah, a lot of pilots lose their drones that way. You do have GPS coordination. It usually connects anywhere from 6 to 12 satellites in the sky, up in the and depending upon the brand and the model you're using, of course. But you have connection usually with your smartphone. And my rule of thumb is I don't like to lose line of sight with the drone. There are a couple occasions where I've bended that rule a little bit, but I don't like to lose physical sight of it. That's kind of my modus operandi when I'm operating. And I did quite a bit of shots actually for the project that we did with Dave Tourget, a documentary for Jonathan Hammersfeld. We did a bunch of shooting out on the ocean. And there were a couple moments when I was gathering B-roll. I couldn't see the drone perfectly, but I think I could see the speck off in the distance. But generally speaking, you don't want to lose sight of your drone.
Well, I'm just thinking of, the military use. They obviously are nowhere near the drone. And so it's completely just by camera and GPS that they would even get the thing back, yeah? Or do they not intend to get it back?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the use case scenario. I think in that situation, absolutely. There's certain drones that are built to travel farther distances and haul cargo. Another instance or example is farmers utilizing them to check on crops and fence lines, and they'll buy a specific model that is able to preset a flight path, and you can kind of check on its progress, but don't necessarily have to operate it manually.
Oh, it just flies autopilot?
There's a bunch of different use case scenarios.
That would just fly autopilot from start to finish?
Correct, and you can just do it as a setting. You can kind of pre-plan the flight coordinates for whatever unit you're utilizing, and you push go, you put it out there, and then it'll go and fly those coordinates for you and come back and land itself.
Oh, well, that's cool. I think that's very cool. You could just launch it and go have a beer and come back, and it's all done. Yeah?
Yes, sir. That's right.
That's great.
No, I don't usually do that, but yes, you theoretically you could do that. Yes.
One of the things on your bio that I found very interesting, but also a little perplexing, I wanted to ask you about. It says Sibley is medium agnostic. Now, see, I wasn't sure which way that medium is being used. So I wasn't sure if it says medium is in low, medium, high, which means you're not sure if you're not sure, religiously speaking, or if medium is being used in the sort of sixth sense, psychic medium. So why don't you tell me what that means for you?
I appreciate it. That's a great question, and actually a point of discussion I had with my partner, my writing partner, when we were crafting our bios together. So in the sense of medium agnostic, because agnostic can mean something alone, it can be religious related, but when I say medium or media agnostic, in either case, the meaning is that it's meant to indicate that I approach my business and my challenges with no specific medium in mind, in that I utilize any type of medium to approach storytelling. And whatever tools are best suited for that story, I utilize. So when I say medium agnostic, what I'm trying to get at, and hopefully is ringing true with people that read the bio, is that whether it's a VR headset or an aerial point of view or an underwater time lapse or a basic handheld intimate moment right in front of the character, listening to them speak directly into camera, the medium in which we utilize to tell that story doesn't have to be the same. It doesn't have to be one. It can be multiple. And so when I utilize that phrasing, I'm trying to explain that I'm not in one tract or one. I don't wear one pair of shoes. I typically like to choose and augment to them.
Okay, well, thank you, because I just totally misinterpreted that statement. I wasn't even close.
I might need to change it.
Well, I think it's confusing to people because I think many people just assume agnostic means a religious sort of connotation. Mm-hmm. That's where it's used most, and I think people, immediately go to that idea, which was strange to me because I thought, well, why is he putting that right in the middle of his bio? You know what I mean? It just some out of left field, So,
well, again, I appreciate you raising that point because I clearly need to take another look at it.
Okay, so medium in the sense of media, and agnostic Correct. Meaning not any specific type. All right, I get you.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of different work. It looks like you've done commercials, documentaries, music videos. indie shorts, web shorts, interactive media projects. Why don't you tell us about a couple of your projects that you've done recently, and then we will get to the film, okay?
Okay, great. Yeah. So I run two production companies. One is Alchemist Arts with my partner Andrew, and the other is Popular Productions, which focuses more on commercial content and music videos. And then part-time, I'm a resident director for a studio just outside of Austin, Texas called Studios at Fisher. And I produce, direct, and edit for that company, all while kind of keeping the other little independent projects going. Most recently, I just produced a feature film in Austin called Buck Alamo, about an outlaw musician who was more of an outlaw than a musician and is trying to find redemption in being a good grandfather.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
And I'm currently out in West Texas shooting some real estate videos and a documentary about a historic event in Alpine, Texas.
Okay, well, it
So
sounds
that's
like
kind
you're
of
keeping busy, yeah?
Yeah, I stay pretty busy. Constantly juggling pre-production, production, and post on various projects. But then again, the exciting project that we're talking about, you know, the reason that I actually had the fortune to chat with you today is we're in kind of distribution, the post phases of John Van Hammersveld, Crazy World Ain't It, which is a documentary I did with Dave Torjay in Los Angeles over the course of the past couple of years now. So we're just getting it out into festivals and having a great little tour with it.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. This is a documentary about the life of John Van Hammersveld, who is a very famous graphic artist who did many album covers in the 60s and 70s and movie posters. Notably, he did the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour cover, and
Correct.
he did that Cream cover, which I actually have the DVD, but that was an album as well. I forget which Cream, was it the Live Cream, or I don't remember which album it was with the psychedelic picture. Do you remember?
The Cream album,
Yeah.
It was, I believe it was the, I'm just racking my brain on
I can't think of which one it is.
It was a Pinnacle art poster that he did for Cream that they utilized. It was a live show they did at the Pinnacle Performances, which then they, I think, utilized as one of their album covers.
Oh, okay.
For, was it Revolution, I think? But I know the original art was from the Pinnacle art performance.
Okay, well, if anybody knows...
the Pinnacle music show, sorry.
Anyone listening, if they know, put it in the comments, please. And we'll give you a happy face and a thumbs up. All right, so tell us a little bit about John. I assume he's still alive, correct?
He is, and John is this enigmatic, brilliant soul that I had the privilege to work with. He's still around, and he's constantly evolving his work. As you already mentioned, he did album covers, he did graphic design, commercial work back in the day, and some big posters, the Endless Summer poster being probably his most notable piece of work, kind of commercialized the surf culture and industry. But now, these days, he's actually doing murals, like huge, large-scale murals. So he's kind of moving in from the small form and from like the smallest detail graphic design work, and now expanding into this world of murals, which is really neat. He's currently working on one outside of LA. I'm hoping that I get a chance to go do some more filming with them as these documentaries go. They never quite end. But yeah, he kind of, you know, he's one of those artists that has been lucky and smart enough to revolutionize the work that he does, but also evolve and change with the current times. And I think it's actually been a huge point of a thematic inspiration for us, is this idea of the artist and utilizing John as our backbone to discuss this idea of, you know, what does it mean to be an artist and not give up on your art, to constantly reinvent yourself? You know, what is the path of the artist in which we all perilously walk, whether you're a talk show host or a filmmaker? And how can you find inspiration, be resilient, and own your work in an age of digital democratization, which is another big key concept. because everyone with a smartphone has the potential to be a creator or an insatiable consumer. And we're ceaselessly bombarded by images and content on a daily basis these days. And, I know I've busted apart my barriers growing up in this space of the digital age and trying to evolve as a filmmaker and utilizing this idea of the media file that utilizes different content in mediums to tell a story or to paint a picture. And that comes with a number of opportunities, but also challenges, I think. And so JVH, John Van Hammersveld, which we call JVH, he's defined not only one genre, but so many. And in that way, he's an inspiration to all of us, I think. So this project, the John Van Hammersveld Crazy World, Ain't It? It's grown and evolved over about 3 years. I feel really lucky to have worked alongside Dave Torget, my writing partner, Andrew Van Wyck, Ariana Caprodi, who was one of our producers, and Adam Cood, who helped edit and write. He was our editor and helped writing as well. And we had a wonderful team of collaborators that wore many hats and balanced many roles, trying to kind of tell this story and this journey of the artist with John as our backbone and a way to investigate that idea.
So whose idea was it to make the film about John?
So it was Dave Torget.
Okay.
He came to me and he's like, Chris, I need your help crafting a meaningful story about John Van Hammersveld and his life, which I was honored to be, asked to do that because John's a legend. And I have some history in surf and, kind of grew up surfing. And one of the reasons I went to school out in California was because I wanted to be near waves.
Good reason.
And I was presented with this opportunity from Dave to do this. And he wasn't sure how he wanted to tell that story, but he knew he wanted to do a story about John. And so growing up in the open skies in the harsh desert of West Texas, I love the natural elements and telling visceral stories from a viewpoint of nature and utilizing elements to tell stories. But I also am really interested in the ethics of our age, and again, this idea of the artist and this artist's journey. And so we kind of had a moment of epiphany about halfway into shooting interviews and documenting with John, in that, the story it's about John, and he is the central key element of our project. But it kind of, we heightened it, I think, by making it not just about John and his life, but about using him as a depiction for the artist's journey. And really focusing on this element, this idea of the digital age and being an artist, and this message of hope, hopefully to people that watch it, to strive to evolve and constantly reinvent themselves and make their work and get it out there.
I've had this conversation with filmmakers and with musicians regarding the digital age and being an artist. And it's always the same answer I get from most of them, is the double-edged sword analogy, where now somebody like John went through the whole thing, from the paintbrush to the computer. Let's just use that as an example. Where with the digital technology that's available, not only, like you said, anybody with a smartphone can make a movie, but they also can get distribution on YouTube, and anybody can put something out. It's great, but it's also bad because it's flooded the market to the point where there's just so much content out there that it's difficult for people to get their head above water and be noticed. So in a way, it's sort of the circle has come around where it's still kind of the same thing. I mean, it wasn't any easier in the 60s to get recognition than it is now. It's just a different way you have to do it. And it's kind of an interesting topic of conversation where people will say, well, the good points are this and the good point. The best one I heard was, I said, well, what's the good part of the digital revolution? He said, well, anybody can get their stuff out on the internet. I said, well, what's the bad part? Anyone can get their stuff out on the internet. And that's it. That's really it in a nutshell. What are your thoughts on this idea?
The double-edged sword. I wholeheartedly agree with whoever said that, and probably multiple people that have referenced that idea. When when it comes down to it, I'm a millennial, so I understand and digest media and art and whatever you want to call it in a very different way than my father does or my grandmother. They all kind of interact and understand and are informed by art in the way that they were raised to understand it, right? Or product of a society, right? But
Yeah.
I'm adding another idea to it. And I have to reference one more person who actually was in our documentary, Shepard Fairey, who's in charge, responsible for the Obey image, amongst many others, but that's kind of what made him famous. He's an ambassador of a media, I would say, Shepard Fairey. And he said to us, when I asked him that same question, he told me that images are more abundant than ever. There's a tremendous amount of white noise. And how do you get your image above that white noise, that it's seen, it's bold enough to do that? And so, in answer to your question and referencing Shepard, I think I agree with him in that this white noise, or this ability to kind of put our image out there with everyone else's on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on all of these other, on the internet, whatever it is, social media, we have a great power, but also responsibility, I think, in what we post, because that can affect so many more people than you realize. A lot of people have more power than they actually realize, and so I think it's really good. I'm hopeful about the potential of the ability to post on the internet and have anyone see what's on the internet, but also the threat of being lost in the ocean of images or work or videos, because it's a true testament, I think, and it's a true way to see whether or not that piece of work that's being discussed is legitimate. If you have a piece of work that is audacious enough to be seen or recognized or even discussed, then, or maybe just impact someone in a positive or negative way. Either way, you've managed to do that. So I would say that it's a good thing. Again, this white noise, this idea of the white noise, and how do you get your image to be seen in that white noise, or recognized, or appreciated, or honored, or rejected? I think that all of these, it's moving us into a really great space. I'm hopeful for the fact that we are given the opportunity to showcase our work anywhere with the digital age, with the internet, and it's a big. What I would say in response to that is that it's causing us to have a huge amount of responsibility to be careful about what we send out there. To be very what's the word I'm looking for?
Critical? To
be critical. Yeah, thank you. To be critical about what we decide to put out there, because anyone can access it. Anyone can see it. You can affect more people than you realize. And we're a part of a lineage of artists that must strive to equally represent all ages, sexes, ethnicities in the work that we create. And so I think that it's really important for us to be good ambassadors of a media that can be shown anywhere, that anyone can tap into.
Well,
and through working with John, I think we've done that. I hope so, at least.
I would agree to a point. I think the artist does have a responsibility. However, what scares me is the idea of censorship. And that's something that I don't want to give to either to the government or to the ambassadors at YouTube or Facebook. Because then you have Mark Zuckerberg deciding what goes out and what doesn't. And that idea I don't like at all, because that's a dictatorship. That's worse than the government deciding. At least the government, there's more than one person. But when you have one corporation that censors content. Now, granted, I agree that if people are putting out pornography, there has to be a barrier, okay? Or graphic violence or anything like that. And then there was the stuff that people posted on Facebook of like mass shootings. No, I don't think so. I think there are exceptions to what people should be allowed to post. But I think we have to be very careful. What I liked about your idea is that it's the artist's responsibility to be careful what he creates, rather than leaving it up to the distributor to decide. what is acceptable and unacceptable to the society.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that there is a historic kind of battle, and this goes back before, prior to us, into any distributor versus the artist. There's always a producer that has a certain idea that they want to depict, that the filmmaker or director or writer maybe doesn't want to, and has a different artistic vision in mind. And so, this kind of dichotomy, that we constantly face, be it a distributor or a large company censoring, or a nation censoring the people's access to internet. I think that we constantly face this threat and this issue and this battle, and I feel very lucky in that I, as an artist, haven't had to face that as much. But I think that it's an important topic that people should know about, and really appreciate the fact that they have the freedom to post pretty much whatever they want on their social media, or on their website, or in their forum, or what have you, whatever their outlet is. And we're very lucky to have that freedom. And again, I would charge people with this idea of, what does it mean to have that freedom, but to not give up on that, to not give up on whatever their art is. Because I know, just through the experience of shooting this project with Dave, that just trying to finish a project that was 3 years in the making, but then have an avenue to share it with people and hear what their thoughts are and see what it did to them, whether it inspired them or not. We were very fortunate to do that, and lucky. And so what I would say is that, as we move forward into this world that's constantly changing and constantly evolving, and now we have virtual reality spaces that we're meeting up to do meetings and share art in headsets. Where are we going? And we have even more, I think there's more responsibility put on an artist to put the right type of media content out there. And so I would charge our audiences that are listening to us today to really think and be critical about what they decide to share and what they decide to create to affect the world and the viewers they're engaging with.
Well said. I think that's very well said. And now we got to wrap it up. The film is called Crazy World, Ain't It? Is it out yet? It is out?
It is. It's currently doing a festival tour, so you may be able to catch it at a festival, and soon thereafter we will be distributing it probably online. You'd have to ask Dave what he wants to do with it, and we'll make that decision once we're ready. But yes, the answer is you can see it in festivals, and it will be probably online soon.
So it possibly will pop up on Amazon Prime and maybe Netflix or someplace like that, yeah?
Yes, sir. And as soon as I know more, I can let you know. You can also, both myself and Dave have been posting about it on our Instagram. So if anyone wants to go and check that out and kind of get updates, my Instagram handle is Christopher_Sibley, Sibley, Christopher_Sibley. And again, if you want to check out Dave, who's the co-director with me on there, his Instagram is Dave, D-A-V-E, Tourje, Tourje. If you want to check out more, he's posting about it a bunch, and so am I, and hopefully we'll have it on some online platforms for audiences to check out soon.
Super. And the film website is crazyworldaintitfilm.com for anybody who wants to check out the actual film. Christopher, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Nice chat. Enjoyed it. Best of luck with the film.
Thank you, Douglas, so much.
And I'll check it out once it comes online. I don't do the festivals too much, but once it gets where I can just sit there on the computer and watch it, I definitely want to see it. I watched the trailer. It looks very interesting.
All right, great. Thank you so much for your time, and it was a great conversation. I can't wait to hear it.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guests, Sammy Sadler and Christopher Sibley. This is Douglas Coleman saying I'll see you when I see you.